decide to go this route versus going for a constitutional amendment that would allow recall, especially when you already have union members chomping at the bit to sign petitions on something else to get in on the ballot? I mean, wouldn't you have a ready-made audience if you wanted to go the constitutional way?
I think that we wanted to, I mean, first off, we wanted to do this statutorily, and I think as Bob said, we wanted to kind of go through the process and look, if it's turned down, then we've got a second chance at the apple. And so that's where we're at. We're gonna push this, as Bob said, we're gonna push this hard. And if we get nowhere, then we'll look at other avenues. But that's what we're gonna.
Constitutional avenues?
Well, we'll think about that. All right, we'll meet with our friends and neighbors. You know, potentially, constitutional convention that folks are talking about in 2 years. We'll potentially push it that way. I don't know. There's other avenues available. At least right now, we're legislators. We have an ability to do this, push this statutorily, and if we can do that, we can. If not, then we'll look at other ways.
Any concern this could get messy in terms of legislative recall because House members only have 2-year terms with 150 days before an election? I mean, you'd almost, like if you wanted to do a recall right now of legislative Republicans, you'd have to have those petitions done by I think by June 1st in order to get it on this November ballot. If you don't, then you're pushing into next year, which is an election year for every House member.
I think it's less likely. Look, I think it's probably less likely that it'll happen in House races, just because of what you say, that they're 2-year terms. But I don't think we want to, keep ourselves out of it. I guess keep the House members out of it. I think that we should be fair game for this provision as well. But at least in our thinking, we're as I said before, we've got 3 3/4 years left in a governor's term. I think who's vastly unpopular, and we want to give citizens the ability to politically to recall him. And so I think it's more geared towards those 4-year terms, but certainly we're fair game as well. It could get messy, but I don't see it. I guess because those terms are 2 years, and we're for.
Don't forget too that we're trying to engage people in this democracy more. We've never seen the engagement that we have seen as recently as Senate Bill 5. And people are angry, and they're starting to understand the legislative process. Some are even starting to comment that there's actually 3 branches of government. So they're starting to really understand their civics, and they're starting to pay attention to it. If, in fact, as a legislator, I am running in this next election, and someone is so upset with me that they start this recall, that will have a direct impact on my next election, whether they do it or not. Those are negatives that we would have to go into in the next election.
You identified the governor. Are there legislators that you think also have misled or perhaps lied, who you think should be subject to this? Have you identified any of them?
I haven't seen, no, I haven't specific. Look, I know the polling around the governor. I know that the governor is significantly behind SB 5 and about behind a budget that is detrimental to what I think are votes of violence. So I don't know. I haven't looked at any other particular legislator, but we do.
I only like one Republican. I think about when we are doing legislation.
Which one?
Scott Olslager. But when we're doing legislation that damages a lot of what we have put in place over the last couple hundred years, and then for the collective bargaining bill to be wrecked in the 28 years is an indication that a lot of people are not interested, a lot of the legislators are not really interested in talking about jobs. I mean, you have more social issue legislation than ever, throughout the country, by the way, but particularly here. Go to the Health Committee and you'll see that the 4 or 5 bills on abortion, you'll see issues that have nothing to do with providing jobs. They came into government, the Republicans said that they would create jobs. There are no jobs. They insist on it. Just in January, they let a $900 million tax break go into effect for the people, and then they're asking for all these sacrifices from not only state workers, but from people, from county and municipal workers as well. So, I mean, I think they're missing the issues that they actually wrote into the election on, and that was to create jobs. And they haven't created any jobs. And they've made a lot of promises, and they continue to say, we're not going to tax those individuals over $200,000. We're not going to have any tax increases, but we're going to cut. We're going to cut. We're going to cut K through 12. We're going to cut Medicaid. We're going to cut the services for the poor. We're going to cut the issues, everything from the middle class down. Those happen to be Democrats, by the way. And so they're insensitive to the issues that are very important, claiming that eliminating thousands of jobs, which will happen at the local level, county level as well, not to mention the state, and then saying they're going to create jobs is hypocritical. It's something that they pretend they're going to do. You can't cut jobs and say you're going to increase jobs, when in fact you're devastating the economy in the state of Ohio.
Would any governor be willing to try anything that he knows is unpopular if he fears that there's going to be a recall hanging over his head, that he won't have the cushion of knowing he's got 3.5 years of the term left to see how something works?
No, I mean, I think you should have the fear of the next election or the next recall. And that's what founding mothers and fathers would say to those of us that have 2-year terms in the U.S. Congress. That's why they did 2 years, because you had to go out and talk to the people all the time. The 4-year term sometimes begs the question that you're secure. And if you look at some of the senators in their second term, they kind of take it easy, unless they're like me, and I'm going to go back over to the House. I think that many of them have that cushion already. I don't think it's a legitimate question that it will put any fear in them to try something different. But it should put the fear in them in the way that they're doing things by saying that it is extremely unpopular. And when people look at what they're doing, it's an attack on the middle class, but those that are making millions of dollars are never touched. When you talk about shared sacrifice, but it's not really shared with those that are making over $200,000. When they talk about making cuts, they cut middle class and the poor, but they don't cut anything for those that have enjoyed incredible financial opportunity for the last 15 years.
And when we say threshold's high, I'm going to repeat this: 15% of voters. So it's I can only remember 1 or 2 states in the last 15 to 20 years that have gone through a recall election. Governor Gray Davis in California, when Schwarzenegger came in, and maybe someone else, I don't know. So it's not like, I'm going to repeat, it's not something that happens on an everyday basis. It happens in extreme circumstances. But we want that ability for Ohioans to have that outlet when there are extreme circumstances, extreme political circumstances, which we believe we have right now.
Do you think California was better off after Schwarzenegger was elected in a recall election in 2006?
I don't think.
What would the threshold be